thank you all for joining us to the live session and for all of you that will listen to the recording. I'm Shachar, I'm VP Product here at EverAfter. In EverAfter, here we help to build digital programs, scalable and strategic, using a customer hub. So if you're interested, we can definitely talk after and see, so you can learn more. So just a bit about the topic before I will let our amazing speakers to introduce themselves. In our previous webinar, we talked actually about how to generate more revenue from your existing customers using digital programs. And then we asked for feedback, and the feedback were actually pretty great. And so you should check it out if you didn't join last time. But we also got some questions on how can someone actually start and create a digital program. Therefore, we wanted to have this webinar that the focus would be to learn from experts that actually did it on how to build scalable and growth-driven digital programs. So we have here two amazing speakers that executed and built digital programs, and they were willing to share with us some words of wisdom. So without further ado, Mariah, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. Really excited to be here. My name is Mariah Ureta, and I have over 4 years of experience in total in the B2B SaaS space, 3 as a customer success manager, most recently a scale customer success manager at Gong, and then 1 as an associate product manager at LeanData. And yeah, like Shahar mentioned, I worked cross-functionally to create a self-serve portal for our customers using EverAfter. So excited to chat today.
Thank you, Mara. And Seth, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Seth Devev. I'm a CS leader in B2B enterprise SaaS companies. I also have experience in advertising technology, working in that space for about 10 years. And I'm really excited to be here. It's a really great and important topic, especially nowadays. So thanks for having me.
Today, we're going to talk about 2 main areas. One would be just some basics. What is a digital program, how you describe it, and what is included or not, just to make everyone align. And after that, we're going to talk about tactics and strategies on how to actually run such program. So let's start with the first set of questions that I have for you. So the first one would be, how would you describe a digital program? Seth, would you start?
Sure. I would say, a digital program, I would say it's, obviously a CS related initiative, and it's really leveraging technology to help drive value and outcomes for customers, whether it's for the purpose of scalability or to help drive, immediate or self-service related motions. How about you, Marat?
Yeah, I'll add to that. So essentially, I would also add that more specifically as it pertains to customer success, it's a way to guide customers through their journey. And ideally, this digital program will be personalized and customized based on where each customer is at in their journey. And I would also just add that the goal is for the customers to have pleasant experience navigating the success of your product, but also while adopting key milestones that you organizationally feel like are important to hit along the way.
Yeah, I like it. So we talked about the fact that the program needs to be personalized and actionable and pleasant. That takes into consideration key milestones, and I really like this definition as well. So what is included in such digital program? Like, what type of content and channels would you incorporate in a digital program?
Yeah, I think it depends on the program, right? What is the specific mission? So a big piece is defining what that program is. What is your outcome? What are you trying to deliver? And what is the purpose? But I think there's different, different ways to do it. If it's, focusing on a webinar or a video or a tutorial or materials or, really anything can really have a digital approach. I think what's really nice is that, it's really up to the people that are trying to build it out. Is like, what are you trying to do, and how are you going to be able to enable someone with all the resources that you have? One of the things I think about is the different ways that people receive information. I'm a very visual learner. So if you give me, a knowledge-based article, I'm just not going to have time and be able to actually focus. So I think that one of the techniques is thinking about it in a visual, auditory, and, from a maybe more of a reference way can really help address every type of end user who is receiving that program.
Yeah. I would also say too, Seth, like you were saying, it also depends on the task at hand, right? Your onboarding milestones, ideally to your point, there are some people who do, really well with those long help center articles, shout out to those, and really like to dive into those. So entailing those articles and videos along the way, but that's for onboarding, right? And you could have something completely separately. These are really great examples for QBRs. Same thing for renewals. Each of these things are going to have different content. And so newsletters and communities can also be leveraged if your organization has those as well as any NPS surveys too.
Yeah, and in terms of channels, so we talked about, and we created here like a sign of a typical content that usually covered in a digital program, and you can see that this is pretty. There are a lot of different options. It could be from like a task plan on how to onboard to a specific product. It could be using one-to-many resources such as webinar and events. It could be support resources, knowledge-based tutorials, and a lot of information that could be shared with different channels. Do you have any specific channels in mind that you use for running the digital programs?
Yeah, I think that we've used hubs in the past, which we felt at least centralizes a lot of this, because there's so many. You don't want to bombard and kind of, there's a frequency cap, I think, from an end user perspective. You don't want to continue to shove information into someone, or else when you will actually have something very, very specific and strategic, they'll maybe think of it as just another email blast. So I think one way to think about it is be very strategic, right, in that customer journey and those specific deliverables that you want to send, and think about it from the person receiving it is, how can we make sure that whatever deliverable we're giving is relevant to them? So those are, at least from a best practice perspective, is just make sure that you don't burn out and give too much, and then also don't give too little. So finding that right spot is the secret sauce, and it can take some time. And I think we might be talking about this later. And I know Mariah's been talking about this, but really test it out, right? Like, don't just blast your whole entire customer base at once. Have a scaled approach that allows you to test what works, what resonates with your customer at a certain time. Might not be the same message, at a different time.
Yeah, just real quick to spiff off that, great point, Seth. And I would, also just add that it's important at the beginning, especially if you're trying a new program, set expectations. You could even share with your customer, and I think customer success managers, we have, that, advantage of being on the front lines, right? And kind of just sharing like, hey, we're trying this new way of relating with and working with our customers. So this is what you can expect within the first, 1 to 3 months or whatever stage you are in. And then check in with them, right? And see, like, how did it go? Is this when you expected to see this content? Was it too much, too little? So definitely just all about checking in and not being afraid to pivot along the way.
Yeah, I want to elaborate on that. When you're talking about pivots, it's also giving them like an out. If they don't want to receive it that way, give them that option. And that's a cool way to also measure and touch base with the customer if they decide to opt out, right? I think as in CS, we always talk about different types of adoption. This is a great way to understand and listen and say, okay, great. I noticed that you opted out, and maybe have a more personalized, maybe a human touch rather than sending it out from a digital approach to understand, hey, what's going on there? Because it could be a signal of risk, which you always want to mitigate, but also it could be an opportunity to maybe remove them from that queue of digital approaches and understand what a different way that would best resonate with them. So any opt-out is not just bad, it's an opportunity.
Yep.
So we're going to talk very, very soon about who is a good candidate for such program and when and how. Just in terms of the channel, so there is webinars and email automation and communities and support center and knowledge base. I also want obviously to highlight the customer hub that you mentioned as well, Seth, which basically is the only channel that can consolidate all of the other content, whether it's videos and tasks and case studies and discussion forums and analytics and support requests and all of this information. And the hub can evolve as the customer matures in terms of the content pieces. So you can see here that we took a lot of the different pieces of information that can be shared throughout the digital hub, a digital program, and we incorporate it into a one personalized hub. So digital CS.
I was just going to say that's huge. A one-stop shop that can really also help drive adoption, right? So even if it's not a product that a customer has to be in all the time, you definitely want to have a repository. So if that person leaves, you can continue the conversation, that continuity with, let's say, someone else or some new person. That keeps track of where they're at, and it can help reduce the amount of redundancies in that motion. So a huge piece that I really firmly believe in as well.
So obviously digital and scale and digital programs is kind of a buzzword, but it makes sense that it is. So I wonder if you can share with us, based on your view, why are digital CS programs rising now more than ever? And Maria, maybe you can start.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, from the customer perspective, we typically have so many platforms or products and software that we are using now, and it can be hard to keep track of, especially if your own business is scaling. And while on one hand, it can be really valuable to have that like one-on-one chatting live human, with your CSM, with your human, that can also be really inefficient, right? And it can be more efficient to have one point place, honestly, like if we're talking about a hub, whether it's someone new who starts tomorrow, who can pick off managing your subscription and managing the relationship with the product, and also seeing firsthand, now more than ever, when we're tightening on budgets and wanting to see the value that we're getting from tool A, B, or C, having one centralized place to see who all is using this tool, as well as like the history of the value that we've gotten along the way, I think makes sense with our current economic climate. And so wanted just to touch on that part real quick.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the current economic climate is one of the major themes that we're seeing as companies are tighter in terms of resources and headcount. I've seen it firsthand. I think at the end of the day, I don't like the saying, and I know there's like a debate in some forums of like do more with less. But I think we're seeing a shift in CS where CS is starting to be more of a driver in terms of revenue responsibilities and growth. And that's adding on or compounding the motions that we're already being responsible for doing. So I think it's not doing more with less, it's having more strategic responsibilities with an ever-growing customer base. How do you do it? And I think that's why programs or people are leveraging digital motions. And I think the other piece is just our entire business motion pre-COVID has shifted to remote work and global accessibility. And I think that the appetite and the patience on the customer side is now even more focused. So customer expectations for immediate self-service solutions are a must. It's not a nice to have anymore. It just has to be done.
Yeah, to me, it feels like all of the stars aligned, because from the customer perspective, and I totally agree. I mean, this become the norm. We expect as consumers, because everything we do is with our phone, right? So we have a very digital programs in our hand all day long. By the way, there is a super interesting Harvard Business Review study that says that people throughout their day, in their workday, they toggle between 1,200 apps a day. So we have to make sure that while they give us their attention, we can actually take them from point A to point B based on their expectations and their goals and needs. So I think this is something that is when I read it, it's huge. From company perspective, I agree. We need to scale and we need to become more efficient, and we need to find like scalable ways to provide pleasant experience. I also think that from technology perspective, if we'll compare what we have today in order to build digital programs compared to what we have even 5 or 7 years ago, so now we have much more technology to actually utilize in order to build and share those digital programs. So it seems like from both perspective, 2023 and 2024 is a really, really good time to do that. So it's much more affordable even now to do it, because 10 years ago you had to develop everything yourself. So now you can just use technology.
Yeah, I was going to just say, like, with that 1,500 apps, or, you have such a small window, right? It has to be there. I have to, from a user experience perspective, whether you're using a third party or you're using your own technology, it has to be like, what is the call to action? Make it easy, 1 or 2 clicks at the most, or else you've lost that person's. And I think that's the piece, is it's an attention. And then Mariah, like you said, it really has to do with being efficient with your time. And we've seen now in calendar solutions and scheduling solutions and other type of motions, you have to make the best use out of the customer's time. And that's
true. So we understand now what is a digital program, and we understand why is it now important more than ever. So let's say that I'm sold and I want to start. Who from my customer segment or my customer base is a good candidate to have a digital program in place?
Yeah, I can start. So first and foremost, if you are having a customer success team, I would start with the customer base that has the most repeatable touch points and also the most predictable touch points. So this could either be a segment or a journey. Every organization differs. Some organizations have different onboarding depending on segment. If that's the case, you can start there. But I would say that any theme that you are hearing from your customer success agents of this is a very repeatable task. We do it all the time. Those are either segments or journeys that are really good places to start. So I would say that first.
Yeah, I mean, from my end, I think it's all about risk. It's all about mitigating risk. So if you're going to be rolling something out, make sure it's strategic, it's calculated. You have almost like a scientific hypothesis, right? Like, put in the work before you do something. So if you're going to be doing, sharing some sort of content or call to action with a customer, think about that customer, think about where they are in their subscription. If it's a kind of a SaaS model, think about where they are. If you have customer health or you have any signal to showcase, like, this is the right type of customer that I should be sending this to. You could think about it in terms of cost. So if that customer is a lower ARR, maybe there's some less risk involved in that motion, or that's the target audience. And continue to iterate and try new things. But just because it's just like a low ARR customer doesn't mean that they're not important. So maybe it's a specific subset of that. Maybe you do, maybe you reach out to 10 customers to start. Get the feedback. If there is that engagement, that is a really good start. So I think it's like a crawl, walk, run approach, but make sure you have your ducks in a row before you send it out. And I think the number one most important thing is data accuracy and hygiene. If you don't have the right information, or you don't trust your own internal infrastructure and data, you could be causing some some problems there. So data integrity, and then figure out your customer profile, test it out and see what the results are.
Completely. Yeah. Just to add on to that. So I would even, before even Shahar, like I would go into who we're doing, I would first kind of go into, have some requirements, right? Like what are requirements for even making us eligible or for a digital program? So first, I would also recommend making sure that you have a point person. And I say point person, not because there should be multiple people involved, but it's from experience, it's helpful when you have one person driving it. This one person should be the one that's updating the other stakeholders, right? And this is most likely to be operations, product, other CS leaders. And then in addition to that, this point person, I think, should kind of align on what are leading indicators of health. So it was a great point, Seth, of you talking about what is the risk. So what are our organizational goals? What area are our customers dropping off, whether that's in adoption, maybe renewing for a certain product if your company has multiple products, and get leading indicators of health. It's most likely the case that people drop off if this health score looks like this, or if they are not using this certain features. So that's how I would also begin this process that Seth alluded to. And then just really doubling down on what Seth talked about creating your hypothesis, because it can, we can want to tackle so many problems at first, but doing one problem at a time. So that, like Seth said, we can see how did we move that needle, and do we need to change anything or not? And then we can slowly add to it. So yeah, great points there.
Mariah, I think also you mentioned something really important is, did we move the needle? And that could be really make sure it's measurable, right?
Yep.
How are we going to measure that success? And that is a huge, huge piece. You can think about it from a customer or an external perspective. How is this moving that, for the customer? But when I'm managing, 30 CSMs, I'm trying to drive efficiencies at scale. So a lot of the things that I'm trying to do is manage my team's time and value, because it is a commodity. So, when we're thinking about that, is this project going to help? Or am I adding more work onto my team? That's another piece that, I think with any digital touch point or program is, you want to do something at scale, I'm assuming. And is it going to help alleviate a challenge internally or externally or both? Make sure that that's very, very clear, and how you measure that success.
Definitely. And one more thing, Shahar, I know we probably have to move on, but just going into specifically going into the kind of looping it back to the account segmentation piece that you mentioned earlier, and Seth, your point around, wanting to, tackle the most risks and seeing if we are actually making impact on those. And what I was mentioning about updating stakeholders, not only do you need to reveal like results along the way to show if you're going in the right direction, but also to a lot of times get internal buy-in, right? Because I can imagine that for organizations that have not done this before or brand new, there can be some fear, right? There could be some fear that we're trying something new, we're thinking outside of the box. And so when we have a minute, I'll also talk on about some like A/B testing, very light A/B testing that you can do internally as well.
Yeah, so we'll get that in a moment. I do want to just to say, based on who from your customer segment. So I think that in many cases, we tend to think that only like low tier customers could benefit from a digital program. I have to say that what we see with our customers and their customers is that even super enterprise customers benefit from some parts of self-service motion, as long as it gives them the ability to move when they want to move. So it could be scale digital program and strategic digital program that would be more collaborative or more like manually created. But from the customer perspective, even enterprise customer need a digital space to see their progress and resources, and they don't want to rely on the next meeting with the CSM in order to get something they could do on their own. There are some changes, and we can cover them as well, but white glove experience, it's not only manual, it's also in some parts digital program as well.
Yeah, it's all about real time and scalability, and I 1000% agree with that motion. It's for everyone. It doesn't have to be pulled into a specific customer profile. It depends on the program, right?
All right, so let's talk about how to actually run and build and start with such program. And I know that Mariah, you have a really nice structural framework that you have. So if you can share with us, what is the process of building a digital program? If you can share with your from your own experience as well.
Yeah, I think we got excited and we started like jumping into it. But first, like I said, the framework that I typically use, comes with like the requirements and then the program framework itself. So requirements I touched into on having a point person. Happy to address. I see there's some questions in the chat about that. And then leading indicators of health. I think, Seth started talking about your data. This you really need to, again, align with your stakeholders and the teams that you're working with on what does healthy look like for this customer segment or this customer stage, or a combination of both. And so jumping into the framework, though, the first hypothesis setup, I would say, is be as specific as possible. Seth started to alluding this, but are we testing on all the customers on the segment? How we did it during my time at Gong is we did not. It was a brand new thing that we were trying. So we were trying just the onboarding stage, and specifically it was customers who did not have a pilot, or essentially like your test demo, right? And so there are other factors even outside of the customer success journey they went on. You can even look into pre-sales. Does that make a difference for how your customers are entering your product? So you could take all these into consideration. And I like to think of, your who, will, what's your goal, when, what change are you trying to get to happen in order to the steps to achieve the goal. So an example that we use are admins in blank segment will onboard in under 30 days when provided a self-onboarding experience to guide them through setup steps. That's one example. So I have more to share with it along with the framework, but wanted to I wanted to just like start with the hypothesis and also see if there's any questions, or Seth, if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. You have to be very prescribed, right? It's a prescription. So it's all about the prep work there, getting alignment. So I don't really have any, additional pieces here. I think it really is, as long as you also showcase like the what's in it for me, to the customer, and why are we doing this, as a company, because everybody has to understand, that motion there.
So what with the A/B testing? If we can talk about that for a moment. Yeah.
So first, I would think about it into segmentation, like we talked about your customer journey process. So segmentation doesn't have to just be what level of account they are. You could look at it as ACV, but typically, especially if we're starting small, I would recommend checking out health metrics, feature usage, or the journey stage. And then for the A/B test, so again, I was asked a good question by Adi at Ever After. I think just to kind of point out, like, I think initially when we hear about testing, maybe organizations can think that maybe this is only for bigger or more established organizations. I was a scale customer success manager at Gong, and kind of did this makeshift directional test. And I did make it clear that it was directional, right? That there are other factors that are impacting our customers' usage, right? But likely we can infer that by giving them access to this hub that it did X thing. So it's okay to also call out like where you're lacking. If it's just, if you have an analytics team to help you out with this, that's awesome. But I just don't want to leave out like smaller organizations that maybe feel like this isn't for them. And so I think honestly, Seth, what you said is how we did it. So we chose actually just 10 random customers that did not receive our digital program. They were onboarding typically. And I got all of these metrics and statistics for not statistics, more so metrics for each one. And then we rolled it out to just 10 customers. And then we looked then 30 days later when they were through with the onboarding stage. And then we got the same metrics for, again, our test group. So we have our control group and our test group, and then just looked at those. Make sure that as a part of this, you also have your set time frame. And you, again, gray areas are not bad, just as long as you call them out to stakeholders. Like, these are some assumptions that we're making. This is some gray area where there's wiggle room. This is not maybe exactly cause and effect, but that's how we did it. And even that directional test, though, had staggering results. Our customers started to see value, and value to us were those leading indicators of health 2 to 3 times more quickly. And they did so with like 10 times less emails between the CSM and the customer, which had a good sentiment. People were excited about that. It wasn't something that was a negative at all.
Nice. So we're going to talk more about what metrics we can expect with a successful digital program. Before that, and we talked about the onboarding use case, which is a really, really good candidate for having a digital program, because there is a set of list of action items based on the customer product lines or based on the goals and everything. But I have another question, and maybe Seth, you can help us with that. How digital programs can be helpful beyond onboarding?
Yeah. Great question. One of the things that we were thinking about in terms of trying to deliver a really great experience was QBRs and business reviews. It's really sometimes hard to do when you have a mixture of different customers that are kind of either buying a different type of business model or have a specific ARR type, right? So how do you still provide a really great white glove experience, but in a digital approach? And I think what I was actually exploring with Shachar is, how can we do this for these customers that typically maybe only get one type of touch point because of their commitment to us. And I think that's a huge opportunity, because if we're trying to showcase value, some of the things that you can deliver are those KPIs that either you and the customer have agreed to, which hopefully that's the case, but you have to visualize it, surface it. And like Shachar, like you said, is like, now we have the technology to be able to create at scale deliverables, whether it's from a portal or an actual export that a customer can click on and have at their kind of fingertips at scale. So whether it's reminding them what their business objectives were, trying to use the technology or the solution. What have you seen in the past cut of data, let's say 30 days or half year, whatever it is, what does that equate to for value? So, and allowing you to inject maybe an ROI calculator, and also reminding them about services, whether it's driving them back to that central hub, or reminding them about who their points of contact are for commercial or support or success. But you can do that a lot of that at scale by using kind of dynamic solutions. I know EverAfter does it. A lot of other companies do it, but that is a huge, huge win. Think about how much time it takes for a CSM to build one of those out that are specific for a customer. If you can do that at scale, the ROI and just like the efficiency gain internally, and the customers who would never have received it get it, that can also help drive growth, new opportunities and expansion, but also just retention and getting in front of those customers. So I think that any program, no matter the customer phase or the customer journey phase, got to think about those things.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mara. Any other ideas on how we can leverage it beyond onboarding?
Yeah, no, that was really great, Seth. And something else that I was thinking about is, I guess, 2 other examples that you could think about. Next one, if your customer success team, sometimes it's separated, still manages renewals manually, and there can be a lot of work there. And I think this is also a good example because I think, when we hear maybe the term digital program, we think of this like really, again, complete, built out, elaborate thing, but a digital program can even, again, it's okay to start small. It can even be those automatic reminders starting 4 months before of like, hey, just even an automated email. Hey, this is coming up. Let's schedule time to meet. Or if you think they need time to meet, if not, it's just letting them know that the renewal is coming. Every renewal process looks different. So I wanted to just like call out renewals and even just automating those checkpoints. And then the other one that I would say again is more experimentation. And I'm curious actually if Seth if this is an experience that you've had as well, but I think, our, onboarding stage is more prescriptive. We typically have a prescriptive process, right, for renewals as well. And I think for most organizations, but curious what you all think, it's that in between area, right? That's very gray, and there's opportunity for a lot of open-endedness. What does this middle of the journey look like in terms of our customers being successful? And so again, want to just call out, and this is where, we're talking about scientific experimentation. I think it's that middle of the journey area. Don't be afraid to try new things. If you're rolling out a new product, try it out with that. Again, if it's an organizational, goal, or try it with trying new parts of the product. So new features, new products, those are some other things that come to mind.
You actually surfaced something I was thinking about was milestones, right? Like, I don't know if every company wants to do that, but like celebrate those big achievements. If even that they don't even know about, right? Like, let's say that they had, I don't know, they use your technology to a certain milestone. Sending them, a little confetti, little, congratulations, you've done this. Maybe that's a good opportunity to offer like maybe a little bit of gifting to celebrate and reward that high adoption motion. But those are little gray elements that I don't think every CSM is thinking about at scale, because they're, let's be realistic, they're doing some reactive work, they're prepping for something else. Allowing that motion to be let go from that specific individual contributor's responsibility is awesome. And it can also, then tie back into health and other types of data motions. The one thing I really want to talk about and remind people about is bilateral syncs of data, right? You send something out, you want to be able to engage and measure it. So I think that it's really important when you're thinking about digital approaches, it's not only about the outward, but it's like, what do you receive from a data perspective? And let's say that there is someone who responds to, let's say, that type of deliverable call to action. You want to know about it and you want to get in front of it. So not all digital experiences are just there, set it and forget it. It's actually a great opportunity for a CSM to go above and beyond, and then maybe do an additional outreach or confirm a specific contact. Make sure that they have that ongoing conversation in those gray touch points that are led by a digital campaign or program.
Yeah, I can share that what we see that people do beyond onboarding with digital programs are either like managing business desired outcomes, like sharing data or usage information and recommendation to drive additional value. It could be actually managing success plans. Hey, dear customer, give us your goals, your business goals for the quarter. Based on that, we will provide you with a set recommendation and action plans. You can use it to grow additional revenue, because you can use this digital space to actually demonstrate and share recommendations that, again, and I think that because we can read the information from your CRM and all of the goals and everything is super personalized, you can actually grow additional revenue that will be relevant to the customer needs. You can share ongoing analytics and insights and next steps, and also product releases and implementation. So digital doesn't stop when onboarding ends. It actually could really provide a lot of value beyond onboarding. So we are almost out of time, and we have a few questions from the audience. So the first question would be, what are the specific points in the customer journey you expect CSM intervention? How many times a month or a quarter should a digital CSM get on the phone with their clients?
Good question. I'm just processing. So, you know, Seth, also feel free to chime in, but in terms of the specific points of the customer journey you would expect CSM intervention, I feel like it really depends on the goal. What is the goal of the journey, or of that journey stage? Like what is the goal? Can it be accomplished with, first I would be curious to know, like, could this be accomplished without a CSM? Or, less of what could it be accomplished, but also would it seriously impact like the tone or the sentiment, right? If a CSM was not involved. So first I would ask that. And then in terms of how many times a month or quarter should a digital CSM get on a phone call live with their clients? Yeah, I really just think this depends on what resources does this customer have access to. Is there a help center? Are there like online learning courses? Is your organization at a stage where the CSM could maybe email them some of those, or are we at more of a stage where the CSM is really actively training? I think if we're at a stage where we're very much actively training, more times a month, obviously, than less. But I'm curious on Seth, like, what's your thought process?
I think at any time. I think every customer needs an opportunity to connect with someone. It might not be a CSM, but giving them that I have a question motion is really, really important. I think from a Chili Piper perspective, there's always that call to action, like, hey, if you're going through this digital experience, let's say it's a scaled onboarding, or if it's an email, you can always embed, have a question, click here, and leverage either if it's a support, queue, or directly to a CSM or a pooled kind of motion. If a customer has something and they need to get in contact with someone, I think it's our responsibility as a company to do that. But you're right. Are there ways to direct them to, resources that can be included in that motion? So I think it's all about like, hey, what program are you trying to drive? Mm-hmm. And that is the what if a customer has a problem? Try and think about how you can incorporate other technologies that will help them get to the right resource. And it might be a human, it might be, resource at scale in those motions. So hopefully that answers or helps address that. I think that when you're talking about how are you trying to prescribe it, think about it. Like you said, Mariah, it really depends.
Yes, and maybe if we can talk a bit about the collaboration between marketing and CS teams on working on this scale CS motion, if you have any things to share.
Really quickly, I think, yes, you have to be able to make sure that all stakeholders are involved. And I think that marketing has a responsibility for on-brand messaging. So I would definitely make sure, if you have that team, and it depends on your resources, make sure you get a green light, right? Like, you want to make sure that, hey, are we missing something here? I love, leveraging like my ideas, but I'm not the most creative, person to display that. So I think that there definitely should. Some companies have customer marketing. That's a great resource, but also just, raise your hand, say, I need your help. This is something that should be really an opportunity for marketing to also be able to help measure in terms of kind of inbound motions that will come in.
Yeah, and in terms of which department should the point person be from, I'm not giving this as like a blanket statement, but I will share a cool opportunity that your organization could think about this. So again, I was a scale, and this also touches on another question too. So I was a scale customer success manager. I was interested in product. And I also wanted to just call out that a lot of these things that we're talking about with creating your hypothesis, making sure you're having accurate data and iterating and continuing and stopping, a lot of these are product frameworks, but so they're not, brand new concepts, but I don't think that we always think about them or use them within customer success. And so for me, I was a customer success manager and I was very much interested in product. And so as a customer success manager, I saw there were areas where as CSM, there were a lot of pain points for our customers. So I use it as an opportunity to learn a little bit of product, but also make a huge impact on our team. So in terms of who could be the point person be from, it could be a leader that's super excited to kind of do this more strategic programmatic work. It could be a CSM who's interested maybe in going into program management or product management. So the thing that I love about this is that I feel like anyone could be the point person, again, assuming that it makes sense organizationally, your manager's on board. Yeah, it could be an opportunity for someone to grow in their career too.
Perfect. All right, so we are on time. Any last words or tips that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I know Oliver had 2 questions, so maybe I can try and help if he's still on. But it talked about like, how do you go about implementing data-driven decision-making processes? I think you just need the right infrastructure, right? Like if you're going to have a digital approach, you have to make sure that you have the right technology to be able to do it. And that can be based off of a trigger. It could be, a customer success platform. It could be, it has to be something, right? Because you need something to do the scale outreach. And a lot of these technologies out there will have if-then statements or be able to put in kind of conditional statements to say, hey, if this happens at this time of 60 days out, do this. If that, and I think that that's where the CS or the operational motions can really help with that kind of motion. So I think it's really just figuring out like, what do you have in your tech stack? Can you do, large scale outreach, et cetera. And then I think that will help, build those programs maybe more in the walk or the run phases where you're like, hey, this works. Let's open it up. Let's open the floodgates and get this as a kind of cyclical motion. That's where you can implement that data information to help do that outreach at scale. And I want to use more AI as much as possible, whether it's sending different types of tones out there. So I am exploring those things, and I'm loving AI. I think it's not going to take away from a CSM. It's only going to enhance that motion, and it's going to obviously enhance these digital programs at scale.
Yeah, agreed. And there's a few other remaining thoughts. First, this chat has been so much fun. I'm excited to continue the conversation and connect with people. If we have follow-up questions, conversations, I really like this topic. So really excited to connect. Last remaining thoughts is that, again, this is iterative. So I wouldn't take anything, like let's say you roll out a program, an automated email, whatever this looks like, and it doesn't get the engagement or it doesn't move the needle, that's okay. And really just embracing this is more learnings than failures, right? And that actually, if something fails, quote, within your program, use that as a program improvement in your next steps in your stakeholder update. Like, hey, we learned this thing, it's not working, this is what we're doing next. So just really, it should be a fun process. And also last thing is you can also just use your CSMs on the ground for your user research, getting that voice of the customer and incorporating that into your program as much as possible.
All right. Thank you so much. It was always a pleasure meeting with you. We also have a previous webinars with both of you. So all those of you who didn't listen, feel free to check out our resources center. I think that we are all super excited about these conversations. You can reach out over LinkedIn. If you would like, you can have a free consultation with me about any of the topics, how to start, how to leverage, how to use it beyond onboarding, and all of that. I put the link in the chat. And see you in our upcoming webinars. Thank you so much, Seth and Mara. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.